Hey everybody! In today's video I'm going to outline my process of making a small batch of high quality charcoal. The wood I'll be using will be the limbs from this recently fallen white oak tree. Pretty much any hardwood will do, but I've had really good luck with this particular species and I have access to a fair bit of it. The limbs I like to use are typically between 2 and 4 inches in diameter. I use a simple homemade guide on my chainsaw to mark the limbs at 6-inch intervals before cutting them all to length. Once I get enough cut, I like to dry it out for a week in my shop before actually starting the process. Since I'm only making the charcoal for my own needs, I've devised a fairly simple and small setup that has really worked well for me over the years. I usually aim to make about 5 batches in the spring, which is more than enough to carry me through the year. The apparatus consists of a 45-gallon drum with the bottom cut out of it and the top half of a 100-pound propane tank. The valve has been removed from the tank and replaced with a short piece of threaded gas pipe and cap. There's a 1/4 inch hole drilled through the cap which can be loosely plugged with an old nail set. Plugging the hole becomes really important in the later stages of the process. The cutout from the bottom of the tank has been modified to fit over the open base of the propane tank. An airspace is kept under the tank and cover by 3 small paver stones, and the whole unit rests on a 24-inch patio slab. The tank is now packed with the cut-up limbs in preparation for being charred. Obviously I want the yield to be as high as possible, but I don't generally fuss over getting every little spot filled. I keep a maul handy to split some of the larger pieces to get it reasonably tight. There's a few reasons I really like using the limbs from these white oak trees. The wood is really dry, well seasoned, and most of the bark has fallen off. The bark takes up a lot of space, and I've read that it can add a bit of a bitter flavor on the barbecue. Wet wood slows the process dramatically, as all that water needs to be boiled off before the charcoal can form. Our woodlot doesn't have much in the way of maple or hickory, which I understand makes really good charcoal, but I've got all this oak, so that's what I use. I've had really good luck with ash, which is unfortunately very plentiful right now due to the emerald ash borer. Now that it's packed, I put the tank back on the paver stones and place the drum over it. It's important to make sure the space around the tank is even and that the drum isn't hanging over the edge of the patio slab. The plan now is to get a fire going inside the barrel surrounding the tank. I put a layer of crumpled paper on the bottom, then pack some dry wood all around the outside of the tank. I'm using some old cedar siding here because I know it'll light quickly. It's springtime here in southern Ontario and we've got a lot of deadfall on the lawn, which is perfect for getting the fire to burn hot. Once these smaller branches start to burn down, I add larger limbs and regular firewood to start building a layer of coals around the inner tank. The whole process takes 3 or 4 hours and I'm never very far away. I don't like to leave a fire unattended. Usually things start to happen after the first hour or so. You have to pay close attention to the hole in the pipe cap to gauge your process. It's not always easy to see, but you can usually make out the smoke from the outer fire being jetted away by the escaping gases. If there's any moisture in your wood, then you'll see the steam shooting out. When I prepared the 45-gallon drum, I put a series of small openings in the sides with an angle grinder. These allow air to get to the lower portions. It's important that the fire builds at the bottom of the drum. Eventually the escaping gases will show themselves as a flame, not unlike a torch. In the beginning it's pretty sporadic, but eventually it will become more or less constant. In this case the flame is orange, but in many cases it can be blue. It really depends on the wood you're burning. Once that flame gets strong and steady, I load up the barrel with what will probably be the final batch of firewood. The plan now is to build a nice bed of coals around the base of the inner tank and allow the charring wood to bake for the next hour or so. Sooner or later, the volatile gases will be burned off and the flame will disappear. It's obvious that there isn't much pressure being expelled from the tank, and you can see that the flame has been replaced with smoke. Once I'm convinced the flame is gone for good, I insert the nail set into the hole, which prevents oxygen from getting inside the tank, which will eventually reduce the newly formed charcoal to ashes. At this point, the tank is surrounded by coals, and that's okay. We want the inner tank to keep baking in an oxygen-free environment. After a few hours, the coals will have burned themselves out. Everything is still really hot, so I leave it alone. I let it cool overnight, and I'll open it in the morning. It's now almost a full 24 hours since I started the fire. The coals have all burned away, so I can safely remove the drum. The tank containing the charcoal is cold to the touch, so it's okay to open it up and see how we did. The limbs have been completely converted and there's no sign of ashes, which means there was no oxygen present while it cooled. If these lumps had any warmth left in them, I'd let them sit for another day. It was close to freezing last night, so these ones are stone cold, and I can empty the tank and get ready for the next batch. I keep my charcoal in covered totes. It's a good idea to store fresh charcoal in a covered spot outdoors for a few days, just in case there's a small ember in there which could reignite and start a fire. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.